Okay, well, sorry you missed the tarweed and the green everlasting. Let's continue on here. Thank you, Bonnie. Oh, how do I get control again? There we go. This mountain mahogany I never had as one of my featured 5, but it was on the bunch of 20 flowers. And again, these are seeds, but this is really pretty. And you can see these guys in the chaparral. And look down on the ground. When they fall off the tree, they gather on the ground. So that's the mountain mahogany. And I did see wild rose the other day. I was walking up Upper Alpine Road, and the rose hips are forming, and the wild rose is still there. I'm not sure if it's still accepting pollination. It's pretty far gone, but that's about the end of the flowers. And now I'm going to unshare my screen if I can.
Hey, Dan, I have a favor to ask since I hit the recording. Could you just click on the first 2 that you
Sure, yeah.
you spoke about?
And tell me how to unshare my screen. Okay.
For the tarweed?
Yeah, wait a minute. Where are we here? How do I get control? There we go. The tarweed. I press down. I press to the right, I press down, I press space. Oh, there we go. Another tarweed. Somehow I seem to be losing control here. There we go. Cudweed or green everlasting. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
There we go in the wild rose. Now, stop share. There we go. So I just wanted to talk about oats for a while. I have this book, which you probably, my crazy video thing says, doesn't like my virtual background. So for a moment here, here's a book called Oats of California, and you can pick out the names. I guess I could put this on a share. It's an old book, but it's a lovely, lovely book if you really care about oaks. But of course, nowadays, Google knows everything that anybody ever would want to know. So you can probably go beyond, probably don't need any books anymore. But anyway, that's a good book I've been using. Here's another screen, which is appropriate for talking about oaks. But let me just share my screen, and we'll continue with the talk. So I'm going to talk about 5 oaks today, and there's 2 lineages, evolutionary lineages. These are sort of below genus and above species. The white oaks include the valley oak, the blue oak, and the leather oak. This has nothing to do with whether they're deciduous or evergreen. The lineages are not related to that. They're somewhat different. The hybrids form within the lineages. So across the street from us, we have a valley blue hybrid, and I've seen leather blue hybrids. Leather blue, I'm pretty sure hybrids. So these guys will all hybridize together, but these white oaks will never hybridize with the red oaks. And the red oaks then are the coast live oak and the California black oak, one of which is evergreen and one of which is deciduous. But again, you can hybridize. And sudden oak death only attacks the red oaks, with the coast live oak and the California black oak, as well as many, many other plants, madrones and many other plants. But the white oaks seem to be pretty well not susceptible. So that's nice to know, because my favorite oak is hoax of the white oaks somehow. So here we go with the valley oak, the first white oak. Quercus lobata, because of the lobes. It's got deep lobes on the on the leaves, and large leaves, very soft leaves, and you hardly ever see a sort of teenage valley oak because the deer love them. We have big ones, we have little tiny ones, but then the deer just eat them right off. So if you see a little valley oak seedling and you want to have an oak there, you need to protect it from deer. These are the acorns. This is the flowers. And here's the birds love the flowers. But you see the oaks are, of course, flowering plants, and they have some beautiful flowers just before they get their acorns. And then the acorns are prized by many birds, including the acorn woodpeckers. And the acorn woodpeckers will find an old dead oak and turn it into a granary tree and just store many, many more acorns than they could ever eat. But I guess that's what they're driven to do. Some people store away a lot more money than they could ever spend as well. So I guess we can't talk about the woodpeckers too much. Now I'm going to go through some seasons. The deciduous trees, it's sort of fun to watch them, watch the deciduous effect. So here we are at the end of the dry season. This is a valley oak in Jasper Ridge, and it's full of mistletoe, but there are just no leaves at all on the oak. And in December, sort of at the end of our dry season, well, actually, it's started to rain. You can see the grass is beginning to get green, but the oak is still very, very dormant. And then a little later on in February, or end of February, early March, there's a lot more grass coming up, and you get the lovely soft green leaves coming up. And then this is only a couple of days later, but a different year, and things have progressed a little farther here. And you see all the different colors. If you notice way in the back, this here is a coast live oak, and it just sort of sits there, the same color, the same sort of boring, whereas the valley oaks are going through a lot of changes, and the colors are wonderful. And here we have in April, it's turning a darker green. The coast live oak is still there. Okay, and this is later on, and you get this lovely green and a few turkeys. Grass is growing, and then at the end of the very close to the end of the rainy season, it's still photosynthesizing, but it's turning into the long-term summer production. The rains have stopped, but the oak is still photosynthesizing and doing its thing, but the colors are shifting. Oops. And then August looks about the same. The grass has changed a lot, but the oak looks about the same. And you still have that coast live oak back here and back here that look the same as they always do. And then later on, it gradually changes color. The mistletoe is gone, the grass is gone. And finally, the leaves have almost all fallen off. So that's the year of the oak. But you'll notice it stays green well into the dry season. So it's able to photosynthesize, it's able to keep its production going even after the rain stop, as opposed to our buckeye, which says once the rain stop, it's out of there. It's going to make its seeds. The buckeyes are going to stay on the tree all summer, but the leaves fall off, as soon after it starts to get dry. So I just wanted to show you a couple more valley oaks. This is a photo that Jane Ames took from exactly where our house now sits. But this was way before the Portola Valley Ranch was even thought of. And look at all the cattle down there in the frog pond. And Windy Hill, very bare. Look at, there's hardly anything, any growth. Well, there's a lot fewer, lot less growth up there on the hill. And this is the oak I wanted to show you. This is the street Indian crossing went right by this oak, but right now it's fairly bare, so you can tell this is late in the season. So this was in 1970, and about a decade later, we had moved in, and I took a photo from that same tree. So there's Windy Hill again from that same valley oak. The valley oak died, maybe it was a couple hundred years old, and people thought, oh, maybe a limb will fall on somebody, so they cut the tree down. I was very sad because the birds loved it. Even the old dead tree was a haven. So here's some more valley oaks. This is one of my favorites in the middle of the grassland at Jasper Ridge. It's a couple hundred years old, and I noticed a couple of seasons there was a little bit of mistletoe right up here, but then it went away again. So, you know, over 200 years, the mistletoe hasn't really been able to get a foothold on this tree. I don't know quite why that is. I think Rodolfo Dirzo is trying to figure that out. But somehow, many of these valley oaks have mistletoe, but some of them don't. Here's another old valley oak at Jasper Ridge, and it lost a major limb, but the rest of it is still hanging in there. And for those of you that go up Windy Hill, this is the Windy Hill Trail. All the lace lichen coming down, but this is a sort of a gateway to Windy Hill. And back at Portola Valley Ranch, we've got valley oaks. Valley oaks tend to grow by themselves. You often see very big, lovely sort of specimen trees. You don't see a lot of valley oaks in the woods, in a forest, all bunched together, sort of individual trees. They're really beautiful trees. The next one is also a so-called white oak. This is a blue oak, and you'll see it's also got lobed leaves, but the way you can tell a blue from a valley, people have told me, is that if the lobes go less than halfway in, it's more likely a blue. This lobe here seems to go more than halfway in, but basically these lobes are smaller than the ones in the valley. The blue oak really is blue. If you see multiple oaks, you just sort of stand back and don't look too closely. Let your eyes go a little soft. You'll notice the color is actually a lot bluer of the blue oak than of the other oaks. So that's clearly where the name comes from. The leaves are not as shiny, and the blue oak is the best oak for living in drought conditions. So the acorns. It's a lovely tree, and it's got the flowers. In drought conditions, the blue oak can really go into stasis and really just stop everything. And the blue oak is deciduous, but it's deciduous. It's so-called drought deciduous. It loses its leaves and goes into sort of hibernation based on the amount of water that's available, whereas the valley oak is really based on the season, on the amount of light and so on. So this is a valley oak through the seasons. I guess one more thing I want to say about about blue oak before I forget it, is it can go several years in a very, very low water condition. It can really shut down. So it's found in a lot of places that have intermittent droughts. So who knows? We're getting much more of a droughts these years. So here again we have a blue oak. Many blue oaks are in woods, or many together, but there are some all by themselves. And this is one at Portola Valley Ranch. Anybody who's hiked around the hill on Deer Path has probably noticed this tree. Windy Hill is just behind it here. So in January, you see there's basically well, there's one leaf I can see there, just hasn't fallen off yet. And then end of January, February, looks about the same. Windy Hill is also brown, but the grass is starting. In end of February, this was taken from Black Oak Trail, but still about the same. So it's been raining, but the oak is, the leaves haven't come yet. But then end of some time around early March, out pop the leaves, at least this year. And Windy Hill, you notice, has also turned green. And then by June, it's fully in leaf. And again, the rains have stopped, but this is the prime time for the blue oak to have its leaves and be producing. So in October, there's a deer. You can tell why the oak is up above the ground about that height by looking at how tall the deer is. I think the deer do like to eat oak leaves. So in October, it's been dry for a long time. It's going to rain sometime not too long, and it still has its leaves. And again, even in mid-November, but its leaves are turning. And so by the time we get to December, it's pretty well lost its leaves. Losing the leaves, I mean, I think for the buckeye, it basically is losing leaves as a way of preserving water and just avoiding evaporation. But for some of the oaks, I think it's just a strategy to avoid any kind of insects or fungus or whatever that might grow on leaf. If you lose the leaf, then all that stuff goes away, and then you can start again with fresh, clean leaves. And whereas the evergreen oaks have to have either very hard surfaces or some other strategy for dealing with these parasites and things that live on the leaves. So that's the year of the blue oak. As I said, blue oaks do like to live in forests. This is one just near that other rock I showed. This is the forest on the top of the Deer Path Trail, and there's a deer. So that's why I have the exclamation point. And a double rainbow if you look really closely. Jasper Ridge, there are many oak forests, blue oak forests. And this one here is a single-aged blue oak forest along the ridge. And the rumor is that when they built the Searsville Dam, the workers camped out up here and cut down most of the trees. So this forest sort of grew up around the time of the building of Searsville Dam, late 1800s. These are all, they're all Jasper Ridge, but they're different little blue oak forests. And this is a view from a distance of the single-aged blue oak forest when they've all lost their leaves. These other things are something else, probably coast live oak. But in the winter, they do lose their leaves. So the third and last major white oak family is the leather oak. And we don't see that very often around here because it only grows on serpentine soil. I don't know of any serpentine soil except that at Jasper Ridge, but maybe there might very well be some up on the hills around Jasper Ridge, maybe around elsewhere in Portola Valley. Maybe somewhere around the Stanford Wedge, there might be some serpentine. So this is the leather oak, and it's got little spines, and it's got a very soft, non-shiny leaf, a little fuzzy, in fact. If you turn the leaf over, you see a very different color on the bottom. So this is the leather oak. Leaves look about the same, very, very tender and juicy. I'm sure the deer just love eating these. The acorns, the Native Americans were connoisseurs of acorns, so they could tell you exactly the difference in all the acorns, including how they tasted and how they roasted and so on. But they are different. So just more acorns and seeds, and more acorns, and you know, insects do like them. You see how fuzzy those leaves are. And all sorts of insects like to eat in the oaks. Really, really, really fuzzy. So leather oaks, often they look sort of like you know, the little Japanese trees that they clip off and make into little miniature trees. Sometimes these trees are really old, and they still are very small. And you know, growing serpentine soil is lacking in a lot of nutrients and also has some poisons in it. So a lot of non-native plants have found it hard to grow in serpentine soil, and the leather oaks, they'll grow and they'll thrive, and they'll live a long time, but sometimes they don't grow very big in the serpentine soil. So this is a leather oak right here, and it's just not just the deer that have been browsing it. It just hasn't managed to grow very much. And they do grow somewhat bigger. These are like maybe 10 feet tall, and you can tell this is all serpentine soil here. But they don't get, you know, anywhere near as big as, say, a valley oak or coast live oak. And you know, this up here is the leaves, and these are the twisted branches of the lovely old leather oak in the serpentine. So all those were at Jasper Ridge. Now we're going to switch gears and go into the red oak family. The major oak around here is, if any, really, is the coast live oak. These grow along the coast, as the name implies. You don't find many of them inland, way inland, like in the Central Valley, certainly not in the Sierras. We live in a very lucky place because sort of these ranges overlap. We get the blue oaks, which tend to grow a lot in the Central Valley. The valley oaks, guess what? They grow in the Central Valley and on out. Blue oaks grow a lot in the foothills, the gold country, where they don't get much rain, but they're just covered in blue oaks. And then we get the coast live oaks, which grow up and down the coast. So we're lucky in that sense. This is evergreen. These leaves stay on the tree all year long, though the leaves will fall off, but it's not in a season. Sometimes a leaf falls and then another one comes, and this happens sort of gradually, not sort of all at once, the whole tree. If you cup your fingers around one of these, you'll see why it's not very often browsed by deer. These are very, very sharp spikes. These, of course, birds love it. And you can just see the new growth, the new buds coming out of the coast live oak. This is right across a young tree right across from our house at the frog pond. Birds will plant them. This coast jay, scrub jay, is carry it around. They'll bury them, and sometimes they forget to dig them up again, and that's where a new tree sprouts. So here are the flowers and the new leaves, quite a bit different looking than the other white oaks that we saw. So, yeah, these leaves, of course, are very tender, so the deer will eat those. And woodpeckers will look for insects in the sap in the bark. The bark will grow back. This is a sign at Jasper Ridge. It says no swimming. And over the years, that they just left the sign there, but the oak said, I can grow back over that. So the sign has now disappeared. So now we're going to show, instead of showing the annual growth, because it's basically the same all year round, the way this thing grows from a small sprout. So I call this natural topiary. So the coast live oak will, come up, and if a deer would eat that, it could eat it all off, but it's got these spiky leaves, so they tend not to eat it. And then, but they do browse, and they end up browsing, and the tree gets bigger and bigger, but it's still being browsed off. Bit of a topiary shape. And then, boop, it gets big enough so the deer can't quite reach the center, and out comes a little escaped oak, and you get these incredible topiary shapes, which are caused by the deer and the coast live oak. And again, the poor valley oaks never reach this stage. You never see a valley oak of this general age. They just go all eaten down to the ground, and up they go, just the topiary. And here is sort of showing you how that's done once it's really gone up, but the deer are still browsing. Our deer cannot thrive on grass alone. They can't just eat grass. They need to browse as well as graze, and so they need some leaves, and they get that from, of course, a lot of our oaks. So sometimes you'll see an oak that's just above the ground. You say, who trimmed that off so neatly, just at a certain height? And here is the culprit right here, trimming off the tree, making sure that it stays a certain height. And here are some coast live oaks. This is, I think, a favorite of a lot of us who live over in the region of around Portola Valley Ranch, or this end of town. This is up on Coal Mine Ridge. A lot of people call this the grandmother tree. It's up on the very top of the ridge where all the trails come together. I call it the J. Ames tree, but that's another story. I'll tell you that story some other time, I think. But people call it the grandmother tree, and it's been there a long time, and it's sort of welcomes everybody at that trail junction. You can sit on a bench, basically from where this photo was taken, and just sort of commune with this tree, and it's just a beautiful tree. So this is the classic coast live oak. They do grow in forests, but you get these lovely, lovely, lovely big trees. This is a photo I took in 1993 from sort of the other side of that same tree, but it's just it's a lovely thing. And this is a tree just down the hill. I call it the Herb Dengler tree, but a lot of other people just call it the grandfather tree. It's now been affected by sudden oak death, so it's pretty well gone. But it's just down the hill and a bit away from the trail compared to the grandmother tree. Here's some more lovely specimens of coast live oaks. This one's in Jasper Ridge, and this one's also in Jasper Ridge, and the deer browsing, and you can see the tree limbs are just above at a certain height. They don't go down to the grass, and that deer is the reason why. And you get forests, and this is right next to Searsville Lake. So you do have forests of coast live oak, and yeah, it's the most common, I think, oak of all around here. And you get the sort of the standard forest feeling with the oaks. This is just a general photo of showing all the different colors of green that we can have around here. We get our coast live oak over here to the lower right, but then all the other plants, different colors of green, different colors of yellow and orange and red and so on. It's really wonderful in the fall here when you get some trees which are here all year round and sort of keep roughly the same color, and others are just new leaves or old leaves or falling leaves. It's really can be really amazingly varied, even within one or two colors, very just different shades of those colors. And here again, you see the two different trees. This is the coast live oak. So, it's always the same. What's a little boring, but then you get all the other greens and all the other trees and the rainbows and everything else. So, better keep moving. It's 8:30 already. So here's the coast live oak in the Portola Valley Town Center. And here's a hungry bluebird chick in a hole in that oak, and Papa's bringing some food. So a lot of birds, of course, live in cavities in our oaks. And this is just a general woodland scene. The coast live oaks are in the background, but they form the sort of the backbone and the spine of a lot of what we have around Portola Valley. And the final oak is the black oak. Not too common here in the valley floor, but if you look in the fall, look up onto skyline, you'll sometimes see a sort of a band of color, and those are the black oaks. They are deciduous, so they'll lose their leaves, and in the fall they'll turn yellow or red, and you can see this band of color where just at the altitude where the black oaks are. This is when the new leaves come out. They take, most of the red oaks take 2 years to form their acorn. So the acorn cycle is 2 years long. So anyway, these are some new acorns forming, and see where the whole family is called the red oak, but these are the black oaks, the leaves and the flowers turning into acorns as soon as they get pollinated. In 2 years, the acorns ready to fall. And the leaves. These are also deeply lobed, but obvious, as you can tell, they're very spiky. So they're very, very different than the valley oak. It's very easy to tell these leaves from the valley oak. A lot of other oaks back east and so on look like this, but these are the black oak is the only one around here that has these spiky leaves. So this is the year of this tree, which is also deciduous. So this is on Black Oak Trail, well named, and this is in February and end of March. The leaves are coming way after the rain starts. So this is just the rains. It's almost the end of the rainy season, or well into the rainy season. And here come the leaves. And then we have April and May, April again. And then summer is pretty boring. And then into October, you get these lovely, lovely red, yellow leaves. So that's the black oak. Here's a couple. They can be very pretty trees, but this was at Jasper Ridge. Here's some other black oaks, and you can tell this is not Portola Valley. If you go to Yosemite Valley, the Native Americans kept Yosemite Valley as a park. They intentionally kept it clear. They set little fires. They they made it into a park, and a park filled with black oaks. Now it's filling up with all sorts of other, you might even call them weeds, but smaller plants and shrubbery and so on, and it's losing its park-like aspect. But Native Americans kept it as a park, and it's really the heaven for the black oaks. So black oaks from here all the way into the Sierras and up into Yosemite. So finally, a couple of images of three oaks together. In the foreground, this is a coast live oak with a lovely toyon tree here in the front. And in the back on this hill, you can see that there's two different regions. On the left are the blue oak, predominantly blue oaks. On the right is the coast live oaks. So I don't know what causes this line, what is different soil or something, but anyway, the two oaks have two different regions. You can see each of these grows very well in a forest. You hardly ever see the valley oak as a forest, but these other two in the background are definitely in a forest. And this is October, so the leaves are just starting to turn. And this is December, the same place. And the coast live oak still hasn't lost all of its leaves, but it's clearly, they've all changed. The blue oaks have basically lost their leaves, and the boring old coast live oaks are just sitting there, same as they always were. So it's been 45 minutes. I took a little extra time. I have some extra, but let's open it up for questions, and then I have 2 or 3 more if people want to see them. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to say or ask? And then if you want, I can just go on and show you a couple more of the Native Americans. Anne, is that Anne? Eric,
Eric, go ahead.
I'll unmute. Thank you very much. It's the second time I'm listening, and I came back because I enjoyed it so much. You have the perfect voice for narrating this kind of topic. What I wanted to ask, last year was the first time that we saw a blue oak. It was not a very big one, but reasonably tall. It lost all its leaves before its time, as you explained, because of the drought, most likely. We were so scared, I watered it. Is that okay to do?
Oh, good question. I'm not an expert in that. I don't know for sure, but my guess would be it's fine to sort of supplement the water during the typical rainy season. But these guys have grown up in California, and it never rains in the summer. And so I would, informally, I would say don't water in the dry season. But I am absolutely not the guy to ask for this. I really don't know. So my real advice is to either Google it or ask somebody, especially somebody at Grassroots Ecology. Those people know everything. So it's grassrootsecology.org.
Okay.
They can answer those questions.
All right.
And also, Eric, one thing that I've noticed that our native toyon,
yes,
some of it that's growing wild in the open space behind my house is looking a lot worse for the wear this year. And that's growing closer to my house and that has a little bit of access to irrigation,
right,
is still thriving and full of berries, and the birds are coming to that one more. So it may be that things have changed
exactly,
faster than this microevolution can keep up with it.
Right, that's been the same on toyons, that some toyons are quite different from others. But it was the first time that we have seen this in 30 or 40 years that we live here, that the tree was losing its leaves so quickly. But anyway, that makes sense now. I'm glad you explained that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, yeah, sounds as if it might be okay to water them. They have survived for a long time, and they used to survive without water, but we're getting into conditions which they've never seen. This is the climate is changing, so maybe we need to help them along a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe that could be something that the conservation committee could look into a little bit,
Yeah,
is looking at how are we going to keep our natives alive, or are we going to modify what is called a native, knowing that, I have some plants that are native of Santa Barbara and they seem to be doing a lot better. So maybe we're going to be expanding and, trying to think about wildlife nectar or forage by providing plants that maybe grow in a little bit warmer of a climate, a little bit farther south in California. An interesting question for the conservation committee as well.
Yeah, that is. We've been thinking here at home, maybe we ought to try thinking about some Santa Barbara plants or some, further south plants, which might be better here in the next few years than some others. But I think that's a very good question for the conservation committee to address: is what plants would they recommend that people plant, and what plants are going to thrive in the next few years.
I just would like to second that, because we have a large area that we cleared of brush or fire danger, and we were wondering what should be planted. And indeed, I would like to second that suggestion there. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from anyone else?
I have a general question, if I may ask.
Sure.
Go for it.
I'm wondering if the speaker is willing to accept an email with a picture of some native flowers that we see. We see them and we like them, and we say, what are they? Could we buy the seeds? Could we sprinkle them around? Would they take? And I've been trying to steal a few of these native plants when I go biking, but it's very hard to grow them because they're very deep taproot. And I'm saying, what are these actually? They're so beautiful, especially we found out that when we go to Half Moon Bay in the spring, it's phenomenal what you can see as wildflowers there. And also along Cañada Road, that's where I bike, I see these flowers. And now again, there's a bunch that is coming up later in the season, pretty tall, about 1.5 feet, and yellow with some black and stuff. Very nice. And I'm always wondering, where do we go to find out? I do the reverse to find out, but they never give you very good answers.
One of the great resources I find is if I take a picture of something and I ask that question, helping to identify it, or if it's even like a bird call, if you put it on the forum, you'll have plenty of people that are, usually Dan is one of the people that helps identify it. But if you ever have any questions about wildlife or identification, I find that if you post it on the forum, a good close-up photo, you'll have a lot of knowledgeable people.
Good point. Thank you very much.
And I'm not the best expert. It's a little embarrassing. I take photos, but I'm not. A lot of people know a lot more than I. But if you're trying to identify a photo, identify a plant, it's really good to get a close-up of the leaf as well as the flower. And you maybe try to get the different plant parts. Some people can identify them a lot better if you have the leaf as well. And again, if it's just a flower, iNaturalist is a good app. There are several other apps on your iPhone or whatever that can pretty well identify them for you. But that's right. Going to the forum is really good. We have a lot of experts, and it's really fun to hear the discussion, to hear the guesses, and I think it's this, and why not? Why could it be, and all that. So it's fun to put it up there.
And also they'll tell you other folks will chime in and say, oh yes, I have that on such and such trail over here. And oh yes, I have that over here growing in this area of town. So
and even questions like what grows well here, or where do you find this kind of plant? The forum is really nice for all that. I know Dan and Breen had had a lot of wildflowers seeds for a while, but I think other people have seeds. And again, I would ask Grassroots Ecology. They are really, they maintain a lot of wild areas for people, for institutions and so on. And they have native plant nursery, and they really have experts who know what's going on and how it works. So I think you can go onto their website and ask them a question. Let me just share my screen, and I have, I think, 4 more slides to sort of close out the year here. I just couldn't resist showing these. You notice I usually start with talking about the Native Americans who kept this place for us, but I'm going to save that till the end. So when people talk about oaks, they used to say that the Native Americans basically lived on acorns, and I think that's changing. Their diet was very, very wide-ranging and varied, probably more than mine. I mean, I live on a lot, well, probably half. A lot of what I eat is started out as corn, you know. But so anyway, but they did eat acorns, and this is some sandstone, a big sandstone rock that rolled down off the hill thousands and thousands of years ago at Jasper Ridge, and on the very top, right up here, on the top of this sandstone is all these depressions. And you can see 3 here, there's 1 there, there's 1 there, there's several there, there's some there, there's some there. They're all over. I can just imagine the women sitting up there, and the children bringing them baskets full of acorns, and the women are banging away and grinding the acorns, and they're sort of chatting away, and you know, it's a big sort of a party kind of a thing, because it looks like this was a lot of people here. This mortar was there in 1993. It disappeared after a while. I'm not even sure if it was originally there, or if it was just a mortar from some other place, but this is something like the way these depressions were used to grind acorns and other things, because here is also a Jasper Ridge, actually just above that in the same sandstone formation. And here we are looking out, there's slack there, we're looking up towards San Francisco. We are way, way above the oak forest here. There's no way people would have carried acorns all the way up here to grind them when they could have used the other grinding holes down below. But we see here, there's a grinding hole, a hole here, another one here. So looking a little closer, you can see there definitely are ancient grinding holes here. So I think this area was probably used in some sort of a ceremonial way. Clearly, it's a place of great I don't know, chi or whatever, a great spiritual feeling. It's sort of the very top. You can see a long way. You know, it's a special place, and I think to have the grinding holes here probably meant it was some kind of a ceremonial thing. But that's just my total guess. I have no idea. I do know that we still see this evidence around us that there were people living here for a long, long time before the Europeans got here. So that's the end of that. Just thought I would share that as well. So I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. That was so wonderful. That was so wonderful. And again, mark your calendar. There's going to be a Gall lecture. Bonnie, will you confirm it is September 20th? Is that correct? Do I have the date right?
It is indeed September 20th, same time, 7:30.
Yeah, there are many galls on oaks, especially. A lot of different oaks have different galls, so I'm very interested in hearing that. Maybe even seeing some of the creatures that come out of the galls. I don't know if we can get into that, but
yeah,
Awesome.
it's
We have our
going to be a
first
great
attendee.
talk. All right. Thank you, everyone. And remember again that if you are interested in joining the Nature and Science Committee, we're always looking for new members. And if you have any ideas for other lectures or information you'd like to find more about, just reach out to one of us and we'll try to add it to our queue. Thank you all for coming. And Dan, again, you are just an absolute treasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really learned a lot. This has been fun. Thank you. Adios.